I'm Intruder Green. You might know me from things like Hits and Pits, See My Valley City Jail, and Wink. Welcome to the Intruder Green podcast. Oh yeah. I don't got a whole lot to say about everything going on these days, you guys, because it's all more the same. Everything that's happening on this day. Oh yeah, I gotta say the date. It's the 18th of October, which means Halloween's right around the corner. I know I talked about that on the last one, and that's super important to me because that's like the best holiday ever. You get to walk around outside and people don't get weirded out that you're wearing a mask like they usually do, which is good because it makes them easier to rob, allegedly. Anyway, I hope you guys are finding a way to enjoy this season, regardless of the world going crazy. The world's actually, you know what? America's going crazy. The rest of the world is still dealing with the pandemic, but America's like so fucked right now. It's kind of nuts. So I hope that while we have issues and shit to deal with, you guys are still finding ways to enjoy life. I know that, we got this like second wave coming back with Corona and everything, and that's fucking major bummer. But, I don't know what Halloween's going to be like. I feel bad for the kids this year because they're probably not going to be able to go trick-or-treating. Or maybe like because they could wear like a mask and a costume or something, maybe that makes it safer. I don't know. Probably not. But I hope they still get a lot of candy and, TP and egg some houses because that's what it's all about. All right. But the other thing that's right around the corner that we got to remember, guys, is election day is coming in November and you got to vote. I know there's probably a few random like Trump guys and gals or whatever supporters that listen to this podcast. Maybe not, but for the most part, I think a lot of people who are fans of Master Intruder, fans of the podcast here, have some idea of like what the kind of future is going to be good for America and the world. And I hope you guys doing your part. It's like the minimum of what you got to do is get out and vote. You don't even have to do it. I know a lot of people are doing it early with mail-in ballots, and that's kind of a scary thing with the way the people in power are trying to dismantle the U.S. Post Office. So you could do it other ways in advance, but I think you like call your city clerk or some shit like that. Try to get it done. Because it's real important. It's never been more important. I feel like we say that every election, but it's always true. We got the Supreme Court is about to become like the most what do you want to call it? Blah, 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 conservative, whatever, since like a long time. And that's not so good for like women's right to choose and all that stuff. Lots of other things too. Like, we're so stoked that we finally legalized weed all over the place. And like, yeah, it's legal for now. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? All right. It used to be illegal and then it was not for a while. And now it's legal again a little bit. And, who knows for how long? It's like, that's not the biggest issue that we're dealing with these days, but it's definitely one of them. And it's got lots of other implied integrations. That's not a word. Implications. That's the one. All right. Yeah. So anyway, I want to give a shout out to the producers of the podcast. We got Luke Ellis, Hedda Royston, Gem City Sabrina, Vaughn Cotton, Sarah Koenig, Chelsea McNally, Cardboard Box Colony, and Carlos Hernandez. Thanks everybody for sticking in there. Even the ones who aren't on the higher tiers where I say your name. I appreciate it. I know we're not doing these as much as I like to and as much as we used to, but I'm still trying to get them out for you guys, and I got some good guests lined up in the future. So just thank you for sticking in there. And speaking of guests, I got to get to who I got on this week. It's Dennis Jagard. I still struggle with his name, even though he told me the right way to say it. Of 10 Foot Pole. That's how you know him. Guitar player, singer, and we've played some shows together and stuff. And in Europe and in Australia, I think. We talk about that a little bit. And we got real into politics on this one. I'm not trying to make this a political podcast, guys. I'm really not. But it kind of does go hand in hand with punk rock because we're all about like fighting the fucking man and, all that stuff. So, it's going to happen, I suppose. I don't think he's the kind of guy who likes to talk about that stuff, as you might notice in the conversation. But he definitely, obviously, has some ideas about it and some he's a smart dude, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So check out their new album and everything. I believe it's out now, or his they released an acoustic album. I think it came out on the 9th, so it should be ready and available wherever you want to listen to that stuff. And without further ado, on with the show.
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from
Intruder Green,
an inmate at the Durham Correctional Institution. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. To accept charges, press 1.
Come on, girl, now it's time to go to a place where nobody goes. In another town, on the other side of space, it won't be the same. Unlock and go where party goes. Unlock and go where party goes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Jagard on the Intruder Green podcast. All right, yeah. So it's been an interesting year, and it's been a while since we saw each other. I think we played together back in Europe. Was that the only time we played together?
I've seen you guys quite a few places, but
Yeah.
I can't put my finger on all of them. One of them was in Arizona in a parking lot
shit.
gig with the
Really?
Necromantics.
Oh yeah, that's
pretty
right.
sure.
Yeah, that was like
outside of
a special
the
thing. Yeah,
venue there.
at the Yucca Tap. Yeah, that's a fun
Yeah,
place.
it was a Yucca Tap room, but there was a stage outside, and we were playing outside.
Yeah, that's right. It was like a special thing, and we had to we did the whole rock star thing where we flew in, played the show, and then had to fly back for some reason. I don't know. It was probably breaking what do you call that when you're breaking probation or something. So we had to get back home real quick. But yeah, that was
To get the ankle bracelets back on.
Yeah, that's right. You can't leave it sitting too long and they figure it out. But yeah, so that was fun. And then I think we played on a boat in it was either in Amsterdam or Paris with you guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's that boat in Paris with a good sound system. I remember places by their sound systems because I'm a sound engineer. But
I've heard.
Yeah,
you're real good at that stuff. And they got good sound on that boat, huh?
yeah, it was a good one. You guys sounded great. I mean, I don't know how we sounded, but yeah,
Probably
you guys sounded great. It was
you guys always sound great.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, and then we were doing. Where was it? I want to say you guys were on the Australia tour. Is that right? No. Am I crazy?
Yeah, we did Hits and Pits Festival.
That's what it was. Yeah. I remember, because we played some off show from there too. And that's where we were seeing you guys every day, was the Hits and Pits Fest. Yeah.
That was a good one.
It was fun.
But I don't blame you for getting confused because it was Unwritten Law and Strung Out.
Oh, so many bands.
Death by Stereo.
Yeah, that's right. So many bands. And, over the years, you go on tours and I don't know if it happens to you, but for me, it's always like, oh, yeah, we played that show with that band. What country was that in? I don't know. What year was it? I don't know. I mean, it was always a good time.
Yeah, you can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a sound engineer, that happens to me too, where, mixing up whether I've been there as a sound engineer or a band. And often I only remember the place by the backstage. I'll walk in room backstage. I've been here before. And then suddenly it'll all come back to me. But for whatever reason, a lot of venues and places just kind of blend in together unless something really bad or really good happened there.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true for me too. And backstages definitely have that effect as well. You always want to play the show and you do a good job and stuff, but sometimes if they take extra good care of you or something, or it's extra gnarly, there's definitely a few places that I won't even mention, but every time we go there and I see it on the tour schedule, I'm like, shit. And it's the crowd is great and everything, but I'm like, we got to deal with that whole backstage situation. All right, well, this is happening now, so I could see where you.
Yeah, you plan a laundry day the next day. Try to do a cleansing.
That's right. That's right.
A detox or a disinfect, decontamination day.
Yeah. So yeah, you are Mr. Sound Guy, doing all sorts of like super good stuff. So how did you go from? Was that always your thing, or did you kind of get into that from being in the punk rock band?
I kind of grew up doing both.
Oh yeah.
My family had some sound engineering background in it. My grandfather was a sound engineer in Richmond, California,
Oh wow.
in an auditorium, and he was president of the union, and so he was originally a projectionist, and then when they invented sound, basically for talkies, for movies with sound,
Oh yeah.
the projectionist kind of got into sound, and there was a lot of labor fights, and so him and his buddies kind of fought for better wages and whatnot, and he ended up with this cushy job at an auditorium doing sound, and also working for the city. So when I was 11 years old, I think 1979, I started going up there every year and doing sound for graduations while he slept, because he was a union guy, so he didn't get enough hours of sleep. And so yeah, I was a little kid mixing high school graduations in the Richmond Auditorium. They did 2 or 3 graduations a day in this big, it's like 5,000 people seating auditorium, and I'm just a little kid back there dialing. But my dad made missile systems and things like inertial navigation systems, defense stuff. But on the side, he was really interested in sound too, and he built the mixer that I was mixing on. So when I was a kid, I was mixing on a mixer my dad built while my grandpa slept, doing sound for like 3,000 when I was not even a teenager yet. So that's kind of how, that's the path I took. I thought I'd become a lawyer or doctor or something else worthwhile, but I just loved doing sound. So I love making music, I love mixing music, and I go back and forth between wanting to be in the spotlight and like me, look at me, I'm the star, to like being a tech where I'm just a sound engineer. I'm just head down, not worried if I have a pimple on my face that day, and not worried about what kind of shoes I'm wearing, just only worried about, does that snare drum sound great? Like, does Prince's voice sound like Prince, Yeah. And that, so yeah, over the years I've gotten a pretty good reputation, and currently I'm on Weird Al Yankovic's team.
Oh,
so
that's
Weird
awesome.
Al is just amazing. I didn't even know how big he was when I first got the call. They were like, Weird Al, and I just kind of imagined these shows. I was working for Jimmy Eat World at the time, and we were playing a lot of kind of clubs, and I figured Weird Al was about the same, like 1,000 people or whatever. Like, I had no idea he'd play at the Hollywood Bowl, and there'd be like 15,000 people in an orchestra.
Oh, I'm sure. Like Weird Al, everybody loves Weird Al. Like I live in Germany now, in an undisclosed location in Germany, but somewhere in Germany, and they love him over here. He's like huge, like that's awesome that you're doing that now. I think he seems like, you probably met him in person, so I don't know so good, but he seems like a pretty cool dude. He's definitely funny, and funny people are usually pretty cool.
Yeah, he's really introverted. Like he'll be really quiet unless you're talking to him, and if you're talking to him, he's usually very polite and nice, and he's like a kind guy, but he does have that like biting sense of sarcasm if he wants to.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a hard worker, and he's spent years building his career, and he just goes at it, and he knows what he wants, and he's very detail oriented. But it's perfect for me because I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to that sort of thing. That's why I like performing. Like when I let go of that technician hat, I go out and I'm just singing my songs my way, doing my thing, and I don't have to like pay attention to those details as much. I just rock. Let's just rock and have a good time.
And that's
But when I'm the sound engineer, I'm like,
oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, we obviously, there's a spectrum of sound engineers as far as like talent goes, as well as like musicians and stuff. But I could say, like anybody who doesn't know, you're definitely very good. Obviously, if you're working for Weird Al and Prince, you got to be pretty good at what you're doing. But I would say it's great too that you go from like doing sound for these big like world class acts and everything, and then you're in a punk band. So it's like, I mean, you're in a great punk band, but it's still a punk band. And that's kind of like, to me, it's always going to be that other end of the spectrum where it's all about like, like you said, letting loose and fucking just doing your thing, and maybe you don't hit every note just perfectly, but that's okay because it's punk rock.
Or any note.
Yeah, right.
I don't hit any note perfectly.
That's right. As long as you got the energy and people are into it, it's all good.
It's a mental health thing for me. Like I honestly just can't. Sure. I can't stay doing just one thing for a long time. So like literally when I'm out on tour with Weird Al, like my dinner break is and that's why I wrote. One reason I'm here to try to plug my acoustic album. Yeah. I made a 10-foot pole acoustic album called Simmer Down, and it grew from my mental health breaks were when in the afternoon, like if I had a little break, instead of just sleeping in the bus, I'd grab an acoustic guitar and go outside and just start singing and playing guitar. Oh yeah. And it kind of developed to where I started doing shows on my spare days. And but that was a mental health break. Like if you're just there like on the stress and high business situations, then all of a sudden you got an hour and a half to kill. It's like you grab an acoustic guitar and start singing, and it's a big release. It's like a mental, it's like having sex in the middle of the day. You're just kind of like your whole body just relax. Like it wakes me up, but also relaxes and just like relieves all the stress. And so just every single day I would do that. Just go out and sing, just find a place to sing in front of people or not, and just play the songs. And so over time, I also worked out a lot of new songs. And so Simmer Down is a mix of old 10-foot pole songs that I redid in a different acoustic versions, and then brand new songs. But written on acoustic guitar.
Oh yeah, that's super cool. And I was gonna say too, of course we want to talk about the new album, which I didn't listen to yet because I was like, Melanie K is like the coolest chick in Canada, hooked us up with this meeting and everything. And she sent me this link, and I thought it was just like, okay, here's what's going on with these guys and all that stuff. And I didn't realize until like a half an hour ago that the music is actually attached to that link, and I could have heard the album because it's not out yet, right?
It's not out. Yeah, well, I'm surprised. So you have I'm glad you didn't just like pile it on.
Yeah,
give it to like one of those groups that puts the album out a couple days early just to wreck everything.
Yeah, I might be a alleged criminal, but like you gotta pick your battles, pick your crimes. You don't want to screw over everybody because then you get screwed over.
People in Germany really want to hear that.
Yeah, that's true. They do like the acoustic punk over here.
Probably outside of Berlin, I'm guessing, but
yeah, that's right. But what I do want to say is, it's really cool that because I did listen to last year you guys did an album, and
yeah,
that was. It almost seems to me like that was like as opposite as you guys could get from an acoustic album with so much synthesizers and like doing guitar solos and everything, which is like kind of, I guess that's kind of commonplace for you guys, but like, it was just like real all over the place with that sort of stuff. And it sounds real good. So I think that an acoustic album, obviously the times being what they are with everything that's going on, I think that calls for it, but it's also kind of like a perfect follow-up to what you guys did before.
Oh, thanks. Well, I thought Escalating Quickly was like a lot more musical. Like we kind of went off on a different direction than our typical like skate punk, all fast, all like, chugga chugga taka taka. And I also gave Ryan Green, our producer, a lot of kind of permission to just have fun with it. He's cool. The one who played the keyboard parts.
Oh yeah, he did a lot of it.
And then we brought it in guys like Dan Palmer and Dan from Atreyu, doing those dueling guitar solos, and then our guitarist. And so I just told Ryan, like, have fun with it. Like, let's just like make this, crazy. We had like guest players on it and just had a good time. And then the acoustic album was kind of the opposite, where I haven't ever mixed and recorded an album just by myself as like the producer, as the mixer and producer. And so on Simmer Down, I did the opposite of, instead of giving a producer a lot of control, I was like, I'm going to make it my way this time. This is going to be my, like how Dennis Jagard would do a record. And In fact, and one time Prince asked me, do you make records? Like, have you ever made a record? And I said, no, I specialize in live sound. And at the time I thought, that's like, I was proud of that. Like, I'm a live sound engineer, like, cause it's like a battlefield out there. You go out there and it's like, just do the best you can under like the clock's ticking. There's an audience there. There's no chances for failure. Or there is chance for failure, but it's in front of the audience. Yeah. There's no rewinding the tape and going back.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you should make a record. And so finally I did.
Yeah.
20 years later or whatever it is now.
Hell yeah.
But with the social isolation situation, it kind of gave me time to really play with it. I was going to give it to a mixer, but I had so much time, I decided, this is a chance for me to see if I can mix this record. I always had the backup plan was, if I suck, I'll just send it out, have someone else mix it. But I took control of it and just kept working on it until I was happy. And we got to a point where even the guys that I know that are really good mixers, they might have been able to make certain things sound better than me, but it would just be different, not necessarily better.
Right.
And it would be their vision instead of mine. So this record was kind of where Escalating Quickly was just like gnarly and crazy guitar solos all over. Simmered Down is a lot more focused and simple, and just like I tried to make it to where if you were on a road trip, you could listen to this for a half hour and it wouldn't hurt your ears. There's not bashing cymbals. Yeah. I tried to make it beautiful, like how Beck would do it, or like to make it sound good. There's a couple songs out now. I don't know when this will release your podcast, but there's at least 2 songs out already that people can get to from 10footpole.com.
Okay.
If you have but whatever's out at the time, if you look at our news section at 10footpole.com, you can stream whatever's out.
Word. Yeah, I'm not sure when this is coming out either, because life has been crazy lately, and I used to do this once a week, and now it's been like a month since I did it. So, but we're getting back on track, and Melanie K, God bless her heart, for kicking me in the butt and being like, hey, go interview Dennis. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good time. But yeah, so when does the actual full album come out then? Do you got a release date?
October 9th.
October 9th. All right.
Yeah, October 9th. So there's one song, one video out already called Sarcasm Decoder. There's another song called Scars that's out now, and there's like a lyric video for Scars that's coming out in a couple of days. And then there's going to be another song come out, and then finally October 9th. But, whenever your thing comes out, if someone just goes to 10footpole.com and looks at the news section, it'll have whatever's out, it'll have links kind of right there.
For
so
sure.
That's where I'd recommend going for whatever's up to date at that time.
Hell yeah. Sounds very good. And I gotta ask you a little bit about, you worked for Prince, and that's got to be like one of the biggest gigs you can get as a sound engineer, because like he's pretty, sound engineer savvy himself, let alone a great artist. Or he was, R.I.P. But
yeah,
you were involved with doing sound at the Super Bowl. I'm sure they made you sign kind of document that says you won't talk shit about the Super Bowl, but what was that like? Can you give us any insight at all?
Well, yeah, the Super Bowl, the trick with the Super Bowl is you have a really narrow time window. I think it's 12 minutes that you have to from when they end playing football, when the music's supposed to start, I think is 12 minutes. And I don't know how it is these days, but at that time it was in Florida near Miami, and in that stadium there were very narrow tunnels to get into the field. So the whole stage had to be broken down in sections of stage that were only something like 8 feet or 12 feet. I can't remember. I think 8 feet wide. So essentially you have to push everything together and then hook it all together out on the field, and then it works. And that includes pyro, so there's like sound, there's like microphones and monitors and power and lights. So there's power, and then things like pyro, like they're hooking up. All this
it's
stuff.
Not just a regular concert.
Yeah. And then you're going to put it on for 40 million people are watching. So that's a lot of pressure. Another interesting thing is they do a dress rehearsal a couple nights before, and, at the dress rehearsal, they have a full crowd and everything.
Oh, wow.
And on the Super Bowl night, it started raining.
Oh.
And so they went to Prince and they said, do you want to just use the dress rehearsal shots? So the dress rehearsal is the backup. If you can't do your performance or something catastrophic happens during the performance, on the broadcast they just play the dress rehearsal.
Oh yeah.
And Prince said, "No, I'll go out in the rain."
Hell yeah, Purple Rain, baby.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And it was great. I mean, it wasn't raining like super heavily, or at least not at first. And he had a wireless mic, so there wasn't like a chance of him getting electrocuted.
Right,
his guitar and his mic were wireless, so he wasn't connected right to power. If he had a wired mic, I would have said no. Like, no, you can't.
Yeah, right.
Because the you don't want to take a chance on, no matter how cool it is, it's not cool if you kill your artist. And but anyhow, I thought, that's the thing about Prince is he's the kind of guy that like, he flipped the script at the last minute on almost anything. Yeah. But like sometimes some of the shows, some of the performances, there's something magic about him, and it's just, it's hard to beat that. Like that was amazing. Like that was, probably one of the best Super Bowl performances ever. And that's how a lot of his shows were. Sometimes his shows he would just get in a bad mood and stop playing a song and just jump to a different song or whatever. Like it was very spontaneous.
Oh yeah.
But like when he started playing Purple Rain and everybody in the audience is crying.
Yeah,
like, not crying bad sound, but crying. Yeah, I was really grateful to have that experience, and I almost lost it. I almost lost working for Prince because of 10-foot pole. When I first started working with him, we had a tour in Japan, and I told the people that hired me, like, as he first saw me working at a club and he really liked the sound, and he kind of brought me in. It was kind of like a courtship process where he didn't fully trust me yet, and I was doing rehearsals and parties at his house and little gigs. And I told everybody, I didn't tell him directly, but I told all the people, I'm totally free except this one little trip to Japan that I've committed to with my band. Yeah. And at the last minute before I headed out to Japan, I got this call and they said, Prince just booked a bunch of shows like in Chicago and St. Louis and whatever. And he is wondering, he knows you're supposed to go to Japan, but he really wants you to stay. Can you come and work? And I told them no. And I was like, I can't. I committed. Like, I committed my silly rock band. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the people think it's silly, but it's like, there's a lot of people also, depending on your band to show up, not just the fans, but like people in the industry who booked you guys and everything. So, you got to keep your obligations, whatever, like, you got to keep it real.
Yeah, it's a commitment, and there's been plenty of times, and that was one of them, but there's been plenty of times when I'd be at a show going, why did I do this? Like I should have just focused on my audio career, like, because the audio career is how I pay for my family, for my kids. Oh yeah. And the band is just something that's like, I love doing the band, but it generally the band loses money and the audio career makes money. And that was one of those cases where it's like, because it was a commitment, I had to stick with it. Luckily for me, when I came back, I found that Prince had hired his old sound engineer, and luckily for me, they didn't rekindle that romance. Like apparently he realized why he wanted to move on, and so I still had a job. But it could have just as easily gone the other way. It could have just as easily been like, yeah, why did I have that new guy? This guy already knows all my songs. He's done all these tours. I should stick with the old guy. And that was after that I worked with him for more than a year. So and in Prince time, that's like a lifetime, because
for sure.
he doesn't usually keep staff for more than a year.
Oh wow. Yeah. Well, that's super cool though, to have that experience, I'm sure. I wanted to touch back a little bit more about the band, about what is this. I didn't Google it because I feel like I could get a better explanation from you anyway. What is it Nardcore that people keep referring to you guys as?
Oxnard hardcore.
Oh, what is it? Sorry, I hit
Oxnard. There's a city, Oxnard, in California. Yeah. Oxnard. It's in Ventura County, and it's basically over the hill from Simi Valley. I grew up in Simi Valley. Yeah. And we used to have punk parties. There were a lot of backyard parties, and so there was a city called Oxnard where bands like Ill Repute and Aggression and Stalag 13 and Dr. No had kind of a scene, and they had a record on Mystic Records called Nardcore, and they invited Scared Straight to be on it. Even though we were from Simi Valley, not technically Oxnard, we were still kind of considered in the scene and close enough.
And Scared Straight
and we ended up doing.
Scared Straight was 10-foot pole before 10-foot pole was the name.
I should mention that. So 10-foot pole is basically just Scared Straight. We just changed the name. I mean, we've had different players over the years as people moved on. Scared Straight started in 1982. So really, I've been in the same band since 1982.
Wow,
just with different people here and there.
That's hard to do.
And but yeah, so Nardcore is Oxnard Hardcore, and it's having kind of a big renaissance now. Like a lot of people just really like that hard and simple stuff. And I'm writing a lot of songs that kind of go back. Right now, I'm writing a rock album, or we're writing songs, and some of them are kind of back to that kind of Scared Straight vibe of kind of simple and aggressive and not so technical, just like pretty aggressive. So I like to change it up.
Yeah, that's cool. That's what you want to do, like, punk rock is kind of probably known for not changing it up. But if you could be one of those few bands that does, then you're probably going to stick out a little more. And that's cool. I like it. But I like that. So Nardcore is basically just Oxnard core.
Oxnard Hardcore.
Yeah, that's tight. I like it.
Yeah.
So,
it's a skate scene and surf scene.
Yeah.
And, you had a little record called Oxnard, Land of No Toilets. And there's a whole background to that. It's a very underground scene, but in those days we did a lot of backyard parties, and that's what it's all about. And I'm actually trying to bring that back with, after Simmer Down comes out, I'm trying to do acoustic shows. Basically, I'm trying to do yard parties again, but acoustic shows.
I think that'll be more of a thing. Yeah,
I hope so, especially with the pandemic and with the reality is 10-foot pole's not big. We have a few fans in all these different cities.
Yeah.
So I want to go out there and play in their backyard and have kind of a relaxed, family friendly, people invite their friends and family over or whatever, and we have like a campfire or backyard little party. And I did it in Quebec and Ontario area, just playing small venues and little backyard things. And then it was inside, some were in the garage, some were in the house or whatever. But the idea just being like to just make it more like a party and less like a concert, where at a concert you have to have a venue where you're hiring technicians and security and ticket takers and all this other stuff.
Right.
If we could do it in a yard, then it's only me, or like really low budget, maybe 30 people show up and we'll call that a success.
Sure.
So I'm trying to do that maybe April, like across Canada. And in Germany, in case you're still there, 10-foot pole has a festival tour in next summer. And I'm trying to get out there before the festival tour and do acoustic shows, like maybe yard parties, maybe little theaters or whatever.
Oh yeah. Well, I could tell you, maybe when we're not recording, where I might maybe point you in the right direction of like people to get a hold of to get here, or like your agent or whatever. But anyway, that's real cool. And I'm thinking like, it's weird thinking about the way the pandemic is affecting everything. Cause like, most likely I will be here, because I kind of doubt that we're going to be doing any touring even next year at this point, at least in the States, because, like, I don't know. I don't think we could do the acoustic thing. Like I certainly couldn't. Maybe Blue could, but like for us, it's kind of like all or nothing. You got to put on a show or you don't. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know when that's going to be a thing again in the States. I know that in Europe things are going a little smoother, so they're starting to do more like of the real shows and everything. But yeah. I don't know. I think everywhere though is going to be different, especially in the States, because you got a lot of businesses, a lot of small venues that are just don't exist anymore. They like went out of business, or they're struggling real bad.
Yeah.
So I think your idea about like backyard parties and stuff, that's going to be like a bigger reality for a lot of bands than they probably realize right now. Where like some of these bands that maybe just started playing clubs might be playing basements again soon, because who knows the way they got to manage capacities and all that stuff, and like there's just no more, there might not be too many clubs around anymore.
And there's some people in my industry, in the sound industry, that are talking about like these virtual concerts being the future, but the reality is I don't enjoy just playing to a camera.
That's the thing. It's not
I don't hate it,
yeah.
but I don't want to do that every night.
Right.
You know,
and it really
my
isn't
same
the
songs.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to be in person, I think, even if that person is just like 30 people. And I could understand that a bigger band or even a full band, even the full 10-foot pole, like, I don't know if I can take the guys on the road if only 30 or 40 people are coming to a house party. Right. But if it's just me or me and one other person, I could keep the expenses lower to where maybe I could survive and do that. Because at the end of the day, like, I can't lose too much money on the band.
Right.
You know, and that's I have kids, I have family to take care of.
It's one thing to do when you're, 20-year-old and you're like, well, I'm going to be drinking illegally at these parties anyway, so I might as well bring my band along and we can fucking, maybe make gas money to get to the next show. But, you build a career around it and you're like, well, now this band money is keeping me from, robbing liquor stores, so I got to keep doing it. Well, maybe not so much anymore.
Yeah. That's a big thing. So I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but right now my wife works at Amazon. She's pushing boxes.
Oh yeah.
She's there right now. Like she's now a driver trainer. She's doing, and that's what's keeping us afloat. Like, cause all the disaster aid and everything disappeared. Yeah. So for sound engineers, there's no events going on right now. So there's no work pretty much. I mean, there's a few things like the drive-in concerts, but yeah, with sound engineers, my next legitimate job, I can't tell you with which artist, but my next job is September of 2021.
Oof.
So, I basically have to look at how do I survive for the next year after the last 6 months has already been, for the most part going in debt. Yeah. Although there was some great aid for a while. How do I get through the next year until, and that's even like tentative. I mean, who knows? Like in a year, the numbers have to be lower for it to really happen.
Yeah.
So, I might have to don the mask too.
Yeah, well, we're all donning some kind of
mask. In case you guys are looking for a singer, well,
yeah.
I'm not sure how lucrative it is, or the problem is I have a big nose. I might be recognizable even with the mask on.
Well, the idea is you don the mask and, it works both ways. You could maybe try to be a mass intruder or maybe try to, do a job,
Well, I just assume it's both.
Make some money the easy way.
Yeah.
Guitar players, I bet you thought you were shit out of luck when it comes to finding your dream guitar or amp. You go on some auction site or something and it's all crap. Yeah. Well, that's because, you gotta look in the right place. And the right place is Yeah Man's Vintage and Used Guitars. They got exactly what you're looking for. Now, I know what you're thinking. Aren't they located in like Switzerland or something? Yeah, man, they are. Bern, Switzerland to be exact. But you can get on the internet and you can go check out their website, yeahmansguitars.com, and you can order stuff on there. So, it don't really matter where the heck you are in the world. You can just get on their website and find all sorts of cool stuff that you're looking for. And you might not even know that you wanted it until you see it on there, and there's a lot of good stuff. If you got something specific you're looking for and need some help finding it, just hit up Yeah Man Guitars on the electronic mail. That's the email. It's like 21st century and you got email and websites. It's like amazing. Some people will call it magic. Some people will call it science. I just call it, I don't know, crazy shit. yeahmansguitars@gmail.com. As far as email goes, it's where you email them. And while you're at it, get your band a tour in Europe and stop by the shop. Michael and the rest of the crew would love to meet you, I'm sure, and you could tell them Green sent you. Yeah Man's Vintage and Used Guitars. Hi, Intruder Maniacs. Are you in a band? The answer is, of course you are. Everybody's in a fucking band these days. Anyway, if you're in a band, congratulations. I'm making the worst financial decision of your life. Aside from taking out college loans or something. Yeah. Now, there is a way to lessen the burden of such a financial decision. It's called merchandising. And Stupid Rad Merch Company is all ready to meet your merchandising needs. You want some t-shirts? Got a tight deadline you need them printed on? And because you booked a tour less than a month out and you didn't get canceled like everybody else's tours did? How about a bunch of weird random trinkets like keychains, medallions, and what about koozies? Like everybody likes koozies. Koozies are great because they keep your drink cold and your hand warm, or vice versa, depending on what you're drinking. Stupid Rad Merch Company can get all these made for you. Stupid Rad Merch Company is an in-house artist who can help you with your designs of stuff. They're still a small enough company that they pay special attention to you and your special needs. Because, you know, everybody's got special needs. Like, you know, you probably mostly. And they even got a web store. That's where the real magic is. You go on tour and you sell your stuff, but chances are you're going to have some left over, or some fans are going to feel like left out because they didn't have enough money to buy something at your show. So they go on to stupidradmerch.com and find stuff from your band on there. They'll take care of all your production and shipping fulfillment needs. So go ahead, go on to Stupid Rad Merch Company's web store right now and check out all the tight bands that are already on there. They got a bunch of them, like at the Bomb Pops and like the Bad Cop and stuff. It's all good. All sorts of cool swag. And right now, if you go on there and at checkout, you use the code PRISON, you can get 15% off all of the Stupid Rad Merch branded apparel at stupidradmerch.com. Go check it out.
stupidradmerch.com.
But anyhow, yeah, that's it's the future is uncertain, but I'm just trying to make the best I can every day with making new songs and swinging back and forth between acoustic and rock and backyard parties and festivals and whatever it takes, and just trying to get people to hear the songs. I think Simmer Down is something that especially the older punks like me would enjoy as an alternative to, like, you know, when you want to listen to something mellow, but you don't want it, you know, you don't want something that's that commercial. You still like the vibe and the style of punk rock songwriting or whatever we've done in the past. The acoustic gives you kind of a different, easier on the ear version of hearing that style.
Oh yeah.
And I think if people give it a listen, it could be good, and maybe they want that to happen in their backyard.
Hell yeah. I would love to go to that backyard party. I would love to go to any backyard party right now. If there was like an acoustic punk band playing, that would make it so much better. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be, the future's going to be weird. That's all I can say. That's my prediction. And, you know, backyard parties, fucking A, why not? Hell yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I like telling stories. I don't know if depending on, I don't know if that's a feature or just what happens, but at the acoustic gigs, I try to tell more stories or have question and answers. Like I might say, you know, does anybody have any questions? And we'll just go down a tangent and just take off. And my goal is to kind of be like a Henry Rollins meets Johnny Cash playing in the backyard. And, you know, like my monologues don't always have a point. Like Henry Rollins usually tries to have the moral of the story. Sure. Mine may not have a moral of the story, but at least it kind of try to keep it interesting and answer people's questions. Like you said, it might be more fun than Googling it to ask a question. You know, what's this song about? Or, well, you know, where did you write this song? Or, you know, where did you come up with that accent? Or, you know, things like that. And, you know, and just have to say, well, there's a part of Berlin that's kind of old school.
Exactly.
That's just where that accent flows from, right?
That's right. Well, and that's the thing, like with all the isolation everyone's been going through lately, I think at some point, you know, like in conversations, people would be like, oh, I wonder about this. And back in the day, we used to like talk about it and bullshit about it, make shit up because it was fun to do. And at a certain point, everybody's like, well, just Google it. You want to know the answer? Just Google it. Just fucking find out.
Yeah.
But lately, I don't know about you, but I've had this like thing where I'm like, man, I know that I could find this out on the internet, but I sure do miss just asking a buddy and then they don't have the answer either, but we just make up some shit and go with it. Like that sort of thing was so much fun, and we stopped doing it, and now we can't do it because nobody hang out as much. So yeah, that's kind of like my main thing I miss from like seeing my buds and stuff, you know?
Yeah, and you don't want to encourage everybody be looking down at their phone, Googling all the time when you could be actually arguing about, you know, who was the star of that movie when, you know, the Kung Fu guy comes in.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, yeah, Iron Fist? Oh, or you're like, yeah, you just start talking about different movies and somehow you just make up a movie of your own. Yeah, that's good stuff. I love it.
Argue about it for about an hour.
Yeah. It's
no.
Yeah. Someday we'll get back to it. maybe you know, when I don't know what's going to happen after November, like big revolutionary stuff happens in America and the internet goes down, we'll be just like, internet, we don't need that no more. It was fun while it lasted. Let's just go back to like sitting around campfires and like talking shit. I mean, that could happen.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, who knows what'll happen when things seem to be coming to a head, as they say. So
yeah, yeah, they sure are. But you know, I feel like as far as playing music and also doing sound, that's a very important. You know, it's like you said, you thought you might do like lawyer work or something like. What did you call it? Useful or something? I think
yeah, it'll be
I think being a good sound engineer is maybe one of the lesser appreciated you know, things to do with your life, but I think it's actually very important. I think people don't realize how important it is. When you're in a band, and especially a punk rock band, and you've been doing it for a while, I think you get to know exactly how important that is. So I actually really appreciate your work on that level, on that aspect. So yeah, there's good stuff. And
well, thank you. Sometimes I feel like sometimes I feel like there's value to what I do, both with the music and the sound. In the music, I like to think that there's a social value with
absolutely
connecting people.
Yeah,
I feel
absolutely.
like, especially in the world where there's a lot of different influences that are dividing people, and you know, like Facebook thrives on confrontation. If you put something nice out there and you get a few likes, it's all over. But if you say something really mean or really just controversial, then people get angry and they respond, and then it goes viral. And
right.
so it basically is that anger and the clash that's encouraged in those venues. And I like to think that the music, like the lyrics and even just getting people in the same room appreciating bands, at the end of the day, most of us go through a lot of the same challenges. You know, a lot of us are struggling with money, struggling with emotional issues, struggling with depression, or, you know, relationship things like, you know, are we even meant to be monogamous, or all these other different issues that all people go through the same kind of frustrations and disappointments. And am I a good father? How did I fail my kids? How did this thing happen? And I feel like going out there and singing these songs, whether it's at people's houses or at a festival or something, that it kind of is an example to people to go like, hey, we're really all the same. We have different privileges and different opportunities and things that happen here and there, but we feel most of the same emotions. You know, we get stoked when we win the lottery, and we get sad when our puppy dies, you know, and it's kind of like life is a bunch of roller coaster moves like that. And it's not big, but it's, at least I'm not, you know, hurting people, I think. So between doing sound for people and doing that, I wouldn't say that my life's been totally wasted, but it's not as grand and heroic as I had imagined when I started. It was kind of like, I'm going to be the next, you know, whatever, come and save the day. And, you know, as a kid, you're kind of like, well, I don't know. I mean, obviously you guys went a completely different direction, but as a kid, like I watched a lot of movies where there's always like the hero that has great ethics. Like, you know, like I watched Westerns and, you know, and there's always like, you know, the hero's a good person and they have good ethics, and regardless of all the other stuff going around, they stand up to evil, and they, you know, and not just Westerns, but everything like Star Wars or Harry Potter, all these other movies. It's basically all about the good guys standing up against the forces of corruption and evil. And like you get that in your head as a kid, and then if you don't save the world, you kind of feel a little let down.
Well, you know, since you bring it up, I think we all have a chance to be that hero, you know, coming pretty soon. Especially when you talk about like Star Wars, for instance. Yeah, could be, there's gonna be some crazy shit going on in America. We need to fucking figure it out.
Blow up the Death Star.
Blow up the Death Star.
We need to blow up the Death Star.
Do something. I mean, you know, like hopefully, you know, the election works out and everything's fine, but then you still got the whole like, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement and all this social injustice that I think the Black Lives Matter movement has actually opened people's eyes up to more than anything. It's like it was always going on, and now people are actually concerned with it. And honestly, like, yeah, obviously we get more of what we got right now. It's not going to be good. It's going to be real bad. We get more of if the other guy gets elected, it's not going to be worse, but it'll like go back to the way it was, and I don't know if that's that great either. So I'm not trying to get into too much
talking about Berlin, right? You're talking about German politics out there.
Exactly. Wait, it's bad all over, like Germany's got plenty of their issues too. But they feel real bad about that thing that happened, 70 years ago? How long ago was that? I don't know. 80 years ago. Holy shit, it's been a while.
Yeah. And we
still
always
feel bad about it.
That even happened. Impossible. How could that thing happen?
Right.
And we're kind of watching it. But
yeah, exactly.
I think kind of the more people push for equality, the more there's also that backlash that's pretty violent too, that says, let's ignore those parts of history that we don't want to talk about. Let's look at let's talk about how we're great, not talk about the things that we did that were bad, or even the things today that we're doing. Let's ignore those things and just accentuate the positive, or however you want to put it. There's those forces, and it could be brutal. I'm not sure what's going to happen. You know what? Since you brought it up, you kind of went into more detail. I had a thought this morning. Well, not just this morning, but people are worried about armed insurrection and things like that. And it's my opinion that if we really want to make a difference in things, probably the most power we have is with our with whether we work and whether we pay bills. So, like, say things went really, really bad. Yeah. The reality is, if a bunch of us just said, I'm not going to pay my bills and I'm not going to go to work until this political situation is solved, if a bunch of people said that, the whole economy would crash. Yeah. And then all the people who are in charge would say, hey, whoa, you guys need to get back to work. Yeah. You guys need to pay bills. Because all of a sudden the banks are to fail. Like, my point being that the strongest power that an individual has is not going and buying a gun and shooting someone.
Right.
I don't think. The strongest power you have for making change, like if you want to really make change, the strongest power we have is a strike. Strike against paying bills. Oh, yeah. Strike against going to work. Those two things, like look at 2008, like our whole economy crashed because some people stopped making payments on their houses.
Right. Yeah.
Imagine if 30% of the country just said, I'm not going to pay my bills and I'm not going to work.
Yeah.
The whole country would shut down. And as much as people want to say, oh, well, then they'll, these bad things will happen. The reality is that the people who suffer the most generally are the poor people. And we have kind of the least to lose in some ways. Like, the people who have the most to lose are the ones who are sitting on huge stacks of money and just kind of sucking the life out of everything.
Right.
Anyway, that was my 2 minutes of politics.
Well, yeah.
My point being that if people join together and are willing to stop paying or stop working, we could make a very serious political statement without killing people.
Yeah. I got one more question, but I wanted to add to that, your 2 minutes of politics. I'll add one more minute. Because, you talk about the people with all the money. If people stop going to work and paying their bills, suddenly that money that they've got saved up it's basically worthless if you can't make people work. Because, you could be like still buying stuff that you need, but who's going to sell it if nobody's working? So
that's what I mean. Is that if the system shuts down, everything, like the markets, everything would crash.
Right.
So at some point, I mean, it might just go back to bartering. Like, money might not have value at that point.
Yeah.
So my point being that if you're sitting on billions of dollars and you're running these big levers that control government and control the armies and control the big system, you don't want those dollars to be worthless.
Yeah.
So if something happens that makes the whole system crash, you want to stop that. That's the whole reason that they originally voted to spend $2 trillion to help people at the beginning of the pandemic. It wasn't because they give a shit about poor people.
Right.
It's because they know if poor people are paying their bills, the banks are going to fail.
Right.
And if the banks we're basically like we're on a boat together. And if any part of that boat develops a huge leak, the whole thing goes down.
Yeah.
And the people who are up in first class, they don't want their boat to sink.
Right. Yeah, it's true. I believe it to be
out
true.
there. I'm not saying like we should, have an armed revolution or any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
All I'm saying is that if it gets to that, if it gets to where people are that angry and that freaked out to where they're wanting to hurt each other, that's what I think would have a bigger impact on the big picture than like going out in the street and throwing rocks at police or something where you're likely to get killed.
Yeah.
And at least for people who have families, like I don't want to be out there, risking my family.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't want to risk my shelter either. But at the end of the day, if enough people don't pay their bills, they're not going to be able to evict anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in America, where people are sitting with,
well, people do have guns.
But if half the country is evicted, and we're in our, if half the country is being told they're evicted, but they're armed and sitting at home, there's not going to be any evictions.
Right.
Right.
Hey, sounds good to me.
I mean, you have to back up everything with some kind of threat of violence. But I don't recommend going out.
It's the American way.
But I do. What's that?
That is the American way. I don't care about what people said before. Like a threat of violence. It's like like what I think there was like an Al Capone quote. It's like you can do a lot with a handshake and a smile, but like you could do even more with a handshake, a smile, and a gun or something. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. I don't want to hurt anybody, but that's the thing is like, if it's just a lot of abuse goes on for a long time, at some point we need to stand up to it. Yeah. And I believe in equality and treating each other with respect, and I hope for a better world. But the more we push for a better world, the more the other forces come in who want to preserve their privileges and their wealth and power. And but I'd love for there to just be like kind of happy and relaxed situations where I can just cruise around and play in people's backyards. That's the future I prefer. I don't want to be sitting at my house like growing vegetables in the backyard and sitting waiting for somebody to try to evict me.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think I think everybody wants things to be easier and be happy, but maybe we got to the point lately where enough people didn't have that there's time to be like, hey, I don't have that. Nobody I'm related to ever had that. When shit gonna change? There's more of us than ever that don't have that, and like like what do they call it? The 2%, 1% that does have it all. Anyway, politics, social justice, all that.
It's hard to have peace if you don't have justice. If there's not real justice, there can't be real peace, and that's real. If there's people who are in heavy injustice, there's not peace because those people are going to be willing to threaten your peace. If if they're not comfortable and safe and secure, and their families are in danger, then everyone's in danger.
Speaking of injustice, I got one last question, and I usually like to ask it before the interview so you can think about it. So I'm sorry I didn't do that. I'm off my game. But crime stories. Do you got any?
I think you're doing good because you basically got me to go like deep into politics. When, like, for the most part, I try not
well, that's
politics because there's a percentage of our fans who are just like, for whatever reason, might be instantly offended to be like, oh, screw those guys. And I can't afford to lose fans. I hope people just listen to the songs and judge us on the songs, not on what me or anyone in the band like might say on any given day. Yeah,
it's a weird time for that sort of thing with I think the left has the left side of the spectrum has the cancel culture, but the right side has kind of always had a cancel culture where as soon as you start acting like a hippie or something, they're like, oh, fuck you. But anyway,
yeah, I mean, like everyone but Noah died, right? So the leader of the right said, "I'm willing to kill everyone in the world except for this one guy and some animals he brings on the boat." I mean, if we start with you guys are kicked out of the garden, ate that apple.
There you go. But to the point, crime stories. Do you got any?
Oh, crime stories.
Yeah,
that's a tricky one.
Yeah, I know. It's that's why I like to usually
It's
give people time to think about it, because I don't necessarily want you to incriminate yourself. Nobody's ever told a story that they got actually in trouble for yet. But I'm not necessarily like gonna stop that from happening, because that would probably put this podcast on the map, or on the audio map, however that works. I don't know, get like
well,
1,000 likes on YouTube.
well, that's a funny thing because well, I'm going to go on a little tangent here,
Okay.
but like we're joking about this,
Yeah.
but this literally happened a couple of weeks ago. A guy who was a security guy at a protest shot a guy, and we think,
Oh,
and he
wait.
told Slate about it.
Okay.
And he basically admitted to it, although he claimed it was in kind of self-defense.
All right.
And the next day or 2 days later, police went to, quote, arrest him, but they didn't happen to turn their video cameras on, or maybe they turned them off,
Okay.
and supposedly had a gun and was threatening them, and so he was killed. So some might say he was executed, but we don't have the footage to show it.
Huh.
And the president mentioned something about retribution being something that has to happen. So basically what we have is police executed someone who was, admittedly, he admitted that he was the one who killed the person, although you could argue that it was defense, or he would have argued if he had a trial. So in this case, he had no trial, was killed, was accused of, resisting arrest, although we have no video footage. I guess they had one witness said that he did resist, or that he pulled a gun or something, but then they have other witnesses who said he didn't. And that's basically, when I say that there's no justice, no peace, to me, if people are getting executed, that's not justice. But the reason that they even know about him or found him, I think, was because he did an interview with Slate. And it was, they said his name and they said who he was. And so when you say not incriminating yourself, not only could you incriminate yourself, you could get yourself executed in our current, depending what so I am going to plead the fifth, because that's the smart thing to do in this situation. Like if your question is about any kind of criminality that I or anyone near me might have ever done, I am going to plead the fifth.
I love it. Hey, I will take that.
You shouldn't talk to, if someone's suspecting you of a crime, you should get a lawyer.
Absolutely.
If you're being asked questions by law enforcement, all the advice says get a lawyer. Use your Miranda rights, because you don't know what they're asking. You don't know how things might go.
Yeah.
You don't know when you could be trapped, because basically it's like a game, and they're trying to pin the crime on someone. You might be totally innocent, but say something that they can later say, misconstrue as a lie. Like maybe you say you were somewhere and you're off by 10 minutes or something.
Sure.
So the best thing is zip the mouth, get a lawyer.
Yeah, I'm right on board with that. Plead the fifth. I mean, we got a song called Plead the Fifth, and we're all about pleading the fifth. So I appreciate that. Also, I think your story about, what I always say is, you could tell a story about somebody else if you want. So that counts as a crime story. So, we covered all the bases. I think
and I'm not saying I'm an expert about that situation in Portland, but it is something that if people do want to Google it, I mean, at least from what I read, it straight up looks like an execution. Yeah. My opinion is if law enforcement turns off their camera when they're going to arrest someone and that person dies, we should no longer have a assumption of innocence.
Yeah.
Because turning off the camera right there shows intent to commit a crime. Yeah. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, someday maybe the cops will be held accountable for their bullshit. Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to come out with blanket statements about anybody, but I feel like there needs to be justice. And for there to be justice, no one should be above the law. Murder should be punished, whether it's done by a policeman or a protester or the president or whoever. Yeah. Like, if you break the law, we should all have the same basic consequences, the same basic features, and that's what justice is being treated fairly equally. Not saying, hey, you guys get a pass because you're part of this special gang.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
You get a pass because you're rich.
Yeah.
You get a pass because you're white. Like, that's not justice.
Yeah.
How did you get me so political? This is like,
I
this
don't
is
know.
the most.
I keep doing it too. Like, I'm not trying to make this a political
You're a great
podcast.
interviewer.
It's just like it's on everybody's minds lately, and it just happens. But I appreciate you and your endeavors as a sound guy and a punk rocker, and having the views that you do have, and playing tight tunes, shredding while singing. That's hard to do, and you're very good at that. But yeah, we've got a good time here, and yeah, we should probably call it. It was good talking to you, Denny.
Oh, thank you, Intruder Green.
Oh, and where can people? I know you mentioned the. I know you mentioned the website. Is there any? Do you guys active on the social medias and all that?
Yeah, I handle all the Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. I think those are usually 10-foot pole band.
Okay.
But to keep it simple, 10footpole.com has links to all those.
Okay.
So if you can get on the internet and you go to 10footpole.com, we also have kind of a fan club. That's a goofy way of saying it, but we have a Patreon group where subscribers can put in $1 a month or more to support the band, and we give back benefits. And there's different things like early access to music, or certain things that only they can buy, like test pressings of albums and things. So, but all that's available at 10footpole.com. Like, we have skateboard decks and shirts and vinyl, and there's a lot of stuff. But 10footpole.com is where I would send people. And TEN, not the numeral 10, but the word TEN, footpole.
Excellent.
And so it's just me out there. So if you I just got my 5,000 friends on Facebook, so
nice.
So it's hard to be my friend nowadays, but I am still on there. You still send a message or whatever in it, and I'm the one who handles it all. So I try to make, like, 10-foot pole's a small band. I try to make it to where, because we're small, we can give personal kind of communication with people and play in your backyard and whatnot. And so that's kind of what we're about. And I encourage people to say hello, because sometimes I'm having a rough day and somebody will write a nice note about how something changed their life, listening to songs in the 90s or something. And it's always nice to hear. That never gets old. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you guys have been doing it for a little longer than we have, so you probably get a lot of that more. But yeah, I've experienced that. And it's one of the best things when, people say stuff.
Yeah, especially if you're feeling down that day, especially, being at home in the pandemic and having kind of self-doubt about, like, what am I doing sitting here writing songs for a record when we can't even tour? Like, maybe I should be out working at Amazon, doing other stuff, or just try to make a few bucks. But, those kind of, that kind of encouragement, especially having patrons who are willing to actually, like, donate to the band, essentially, keeps it going. It's like, I feel an obligation and I want to keep making music most days. And that really helps to have people, supporting the band.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Well, it's good talking to you. We should get going, I guess, unless there's anything else you wanted to bring up.
No, maybe I'll leave with a nice, with a less political, but still political message. I wrote a song called "Don't Be a Dick."
Oh, that's a good one.
The reason I wrote it, the reason I wrote it was to remind myself to be a good person, and that generally in life, if you're cool to other people, it works out better for everybody. It makes the world better. And so there's kind of this refrain in the back of my head that I try to remember when I'm tempted, like, say I'm in traffic and somebody cuts me off. Like, part of me wants to just run them off the road and kill their whole family. But then in the back of my mind, I hear, "Don't be a dick, 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 dick." And I start thinking, what? If I run that guy off the road and kill his family, it's possible that he'll have a brother or somebody that, like, comes and tries to get my family. And then all of a sudden it turns into a, decades or centuries long feud. And things basically work out better if we're kind to each other. So that's what I'd like to leave with is, the world can be vicious, and sometimes it's just the little decisions that we make. Like, if we're going to get in a big fight about something silly, or maybe it's not silly, but you still have a choice of walking away versus like, sweeping the leg. So I'd say if you can, please don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And check out Simmer Down, coming out October 9th.
All right. Sounds good, buddy.
Thanks for having me out, Intruder Green. I hope to see you guys soon and play in your backyard in Berlin. We'll have a pretzel and little, beer and have, lots of shice talk.
Yeah, some schnitzels and stuff. All right. And that's it for the Intruder Green podcast. I want to thank Dennis again for being on it. You can hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at Intruder Green. The Intruder Green calling line is +1 608 535 9608. Patreon.com/Intruder Green if you want to become a producer of the podcast. The Intruder Green podcast is produced by Colin Bennett, hair and makeup by Genevieve Smith, set design by Dylan Raymer, catering Matthew Hendershot, lighting Squeak Lights, Rahway, New Jersey. Our theme song is Particles by Type Bros. The whole world is watching. I wish you could see me better. It looks like I'm backlit. I'm totally backlit, so that's not great, but sorry about that. Not much I can do about it at this point.
Kind of goes with your ethos, right?
That's right. I'm hiding out.
That's the whole point.
Yeah. Woo!